Alrighty, it's time to roll. Hello everyone, I'm Dan H. This is Super Black Bass, the greatest game you will ever watch. Alright, let's roll in 3, 2, 1, go! Alright, so first off, sorry about the delay. So, I just got home from work. I work in a hospital lab. And the person that's supposed to relieve me gets in at 6 o'clock, and that person works the chemistry department in the lab, and typically they get there at 6, go up and do a pile of blood draws, and like 3 or 4 patients or so, and I was planning on asking that person if I could leave at 6:30 so I could get set up. Well, she got to work at about 6:10, and I'm in Central Time. She got to work about 6:10. Didn't go up to start her draws until 6:15. Got back down to the lab at about, I don't know, 6:35 or so. And by the time she got all her stuff ready and I had finished all my work and passed on any information that I needed to pass on to the next shift, it was already 7 o'clock, so time for me to leave anyway. So then I get home, I got my laptop all set up. Everything's good to go. I'm streaming. I've got all my got all the windows and OBS properly framed and stuff, and my computer shuts down because whoops, I forgot to plug it in. And this laptop is like, I don't know, 8 years old now. Its battery life is about 10 minutes maybe. So as soon as I started setting everything up and forgot to plug it in, it pretty much died immediately on me. So then I plug it in, turn it back on, and it starts all its startup processes like a 8-year-old computer does. That takes forever. And then I have to reopen OBS, reopen LiveSplit, reopen my window to capture the game, reopen Discord so I can talk to Feasel because he's probably wondering why I'm killing the marathon even more than a Super Black Bass run normally would. So I'm waiting for all that crap to go through, and I finally got everything situated. So after a few adjustments for our dear Lord and Master Feasel on my audio, I have started. So again, this is Super Black Bass. We're going fishing, baby. And I'll explain the game mechanics a little bit. Trying to find the fish that I want. Oh, there he is. That's not the fish that I wanted. I just had saw him on the left side of the screen. So, Super Black Bass. Everyone that's been complaining about RNG this entire marathon has no clue. They have no clue what RNG is in a speed game. So in this game, obviously I'm looking for bass. The main thing I'm looking for are called mutter fish. They sit on the bottom, and you can see them in the top left of the screen right now. Little bits of circles of mud popped up. And you have to find those fish and then attract them by reeling in a certain way, and then they'll mud, and then they'll try to swim at the bait and bite it. So the RNG in this game, oh, it's so horrible. On this lake, I have 1 in 3 chance of finding a bass with those mutter fish. Other fish include trout or bluegill, and then on later lakes they throw in catfish and northern pike. So it's already pure luck to find a fish that you actually want to catch. Secondly, reeling in a fish is also pure luck. So the game decides when you get to try to even catch a bass, and once you hook that fish, the fish decides when it wants to come in. Once I hook my next one, and actually it'll become a lot more clear later on as the game gets rolling. When I'm fighting a fish, you'll want to be looking at the bottom of the screen where there's these little triangle things, the blue triangles, and then this gray line that's in between them. The gray line is the tension on the line. If it gets too high, my line breaks. And so there he's doing a special thing. And then for the triangles, right now, so that was called rest phase. The fish can be in 3 different phases. Rest phase, where the triangle is at its lowest point, and then I can reel him in easily. Run phase, where the triangle is in the middle, and at that point I can do nothing. If it wants to get away, it's just going to swim away from my boat. So run phase bad. I can't reel it in. All I can do is hope that he jumps and breaks out of that phase. Or he can be in fight phase, which I actually caught the fish. The fish that I just reeled in was in that phase as I caught it. So fight phase, you can actually reel it in, but the tension builds very quickly. Whoops. I accidentally hit B with A there. That was a big mistake. Anywho, so yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. I know that's been said a couple times in this marathon. So, the spots that I'm picking. I kind of have all the lakes mapped out. There are 4 lakes on the game. The spots that I'm picking, each time I go from the boat screen to the casting screen, there are 4 different spots that I can cast in. There's a middle spot, a middle left, a middle right, that's a trout, and then far left and far right. So each of these spots has a chance of holding a mutter fish, and I know every single place to actually go in all these spots that I've mapped out. So you can fish all over the lake and actually never find fish if you don't know where you're going. So here we got a nice big bass for this lake. Bass are green fish when they come up. Trout are kind of pinkish purple. Northern pike are brown. Catfish are blue. And then bluegills, actually the art on bluegills is pretty dang good from the side. Now this one keeps on biting my line real short, and I can't set the hook on him for some reason, which is kind of annoying, but anyway. So there I got him. Right now he's in run phase. And actually you can bring fish in to a foot from the boat, and if they decide to go in run phase, they can run all the way out to 78 feet, which is the max. So actually these first 4 fish have been pretty quick catches, so this is going okay. Another big aspect of RNG that's going to come up in a little bit once I'm done. I have to catch at least 5 big bass is the goal, and then you get to weigh in, and then all the computer players also weigh in. Now on Lake 1, typically if I get up to about 35 to 38 pounds of fish, I'll finish in the top 3, which allows me to go on. But every once in a while, the computer players, they can really screw you over. Sometimes they'll weigh in at like like 45 pounds will be first and 42 pounds will be third on this lake. So it's completely random. I've seen anywhere from 33 pounds be third place on this first lake to 43. Real wide range, and actually the second lake is a lot worse. So there's no guarantee that I'm actually going to get past any of these lakes, even though I catch 5 big bass. Which is why I've always got passwords handy. And the last 2 times I've run this game for SNES Super Stars, I have had to use those passwords. So maybe, just maybe, I'll actually finish a run properly today. But I would say the odds of that are maybe 25%. Here we go. Here's my last bass. Oh, God. So there was a fish on the very top of the screen that I was trying to get to come up. I didn't even notice that little bass swim up to me. And I just accidentally set the hook on him. So that kind of sucks. Anyway. So RNG for this first lake weigh-in. You got about a... I want to go right first. You got probably about a 50-50 to maybe 60% chance to actually get past this lake. With how the computer players weigh in. Another bluegill. Lake 2 is the worst. It's probably about a 30 or 40% chance. And sorry that I'm not looking at chat. Seriously, there's only about 15 minutes of stuff that I have to kind of talk about game mechanics wise, and then it's going to be just all chatting with you guys. So once we get to Lake 2 or in Lake 3, then I'll be paying more attention. Alright, here we go. Let's catch you. So other things a bass can do while fighting, well, that was quick, that's good. So now I get to weigh in. Other things bass can do while fighting. They can try to shake your lure. And my, hopefully that's not happening on the stream too. My screen is going all wonky because my connection to my Super Nintendo just sucks. So a bass can do a surface shake where he's in fight phase, and you can actually reel him in during that. Or you can do an underwater shake, which is the worst one. So we got some pretty good RNG here. Third place is 33 pounds. I should be able to move on from this. We got you can get the Kappa Prides in chat if with this psychedelic stream going on. The great thing is, on my practice run yesterday, my screen didn't do any of this stuff, and also I got really good luck. Alright, well, 9-pounder. Pretty solid. So hay could be a top record, means I finished within the top 3. And great job, you might win, means I did win. Alright, sweet. Now we're on to Lake 2. Didn't have to use a password yet. Lake 2 is... Thanks for the Kappa Pride. They're Hikari. Lake 2 is the worst lake ever. So instead of a 1 in 3 chance of finding a mutter fish that's actually a bass, now I have a 1 in 5 chance. Because sometimes a mutter fish can be a Lake 1 bass, which is too small to catch and actually be useful, especially with the weigh-in RNG on this lake. Anywhere from, I've seen third place be anywhere from 50 pounds all the way up to 67. And so there's a trout. So that's the size of fish that I'm looking for, except I need them to be green. And also catfish get added into the mix of mudderfish on this lake, so it's going to be even harder to actually find a fish that I want to catch. That one's too little. So I don't know if you guys can actually see these fish that I'm dragging my crankbait past. That are sitting on the bottom. They're just little shadows. This one always hides underneath the dock. He's not coming up. I don't think that's big enough anyway. I'm going to try one more cast to make sure. Another real crappy part about this lake is that it's real deep. So you have to reel in quite a bit before you actually get your lure down to where the fish are at. That uses up precious real estate. Oh, here it comes. I thought I saw mud. It honestly does look a little too small. Oh yeah, the password system. Like 24 characters, letters, numbers, symbols. Oh yeah. Ah, shoot, I cast on top of the dock. A little short there. Hey GDQ, hey, that's a bass, a fish that I actually want to catch. I have submitted this game to GDQ one time. And it obviously got rejected. So these fish are going to be a lot tougher to reel in. They'll take quite a bit longer. Hopefully not. If you're gonna, on the first lake, if you're gonna fight fish until they get tired and are easy to reel in, it would take you probably about 5 or 6 minutes real time. These size bass can take up to 15 minutes real time to actually reel in. On Lake 3 and Lake 4, you're looking at up to 20 minutes for the big ones. So again, it's in run phase now. I can't do anything about that. It's gonna run away. Just gonna put distance in between itself and my boat. And what I'm trying to do, I'm just kind of pressing the A button slightly for, for just a half second or so while it's in run phase. And what I've noticed that kind of triggers the fish into either moving into fight phase or jumping. And jumping, that's a good thing. Even though when it jumps, if you're reeling when it jumps, your line tension builds really, really fast. But the more it jumps, the quicker it gets tired. And I have no idea, like, I've never dug into the code of the game to see like how much fatigue jumping adds to the fish or whatnot. I mean, with how I reel in, you can actually see my triangle. I'm holding A down and R when I'm reeling as fast as I can. And you can actually see it kind of inch downward slowly as I'm reeling at full speed. And there again, 2 feet, decides, nah, I'm going to run away. The fisherman in this game doesn't carry a net, so you have to get it to 0. Trying to think of any other goofy mechanics that go into this game, but that's about it. I mean, there's one little glitch in the game called glitched jumping phase, where if a fish gets stuck on something that's on the surface, its triangle will drop down. It'll look like it's in rest phase, but it's actually in jumping phase, but the animation isn't happening. So if you reel in at that time, you basically just break your line because you don't know what's happening. hopefully that doesn't happen to me. Every once in a while, fish can get stuck on underwater rocks and logs and stuff like that, but I kind of try to avoid those areas because if it gets stuck while it's in run phase, you're basically boned. You can't move it. You have to wait for it to get tired before you can crank her in. So all I do is break the line at that point by hitting A and B together. The one thing that I wish this game would have done differently is like Bassmasters Classic. The combo to break your line in that game is A and Y. I mean, they're across from each other. A and B are right next to each other. I mean, come on. But anyway, the lures, I don't think the lures make that big of a difference. Each one is gonna make a fish mud. Ooh, now my fish that I'm fighting is turning green. I always go with the crankbait. That's the one that I'm comfortable with. You actually saw me switch to a spinnerbait when I went into the weedy portion of Lake 1. Because I mean, crankbait always will get hung up in weeds, and then half the time you'll break your line trying to get it loose. It happens in lily pads too. But the reason why I like the crankbait is because it floats when you're not reeling it in. And it'll dive down when you are reeling it in. And especially for this lake, since the big bass and big trout look so similar, I want to get that fish up to the surface so I can see what it is before I try to hook it. And with any of the 3 other sinking lures, the plastic worm, the jig, and the spinnerbait, you have to be constantly reeling for that to be up at the surface. And it's not always the best thing. You lose a lot of real estate if you have to do that. The other 4 lures in the game are all topwater. So when I go to Lake 3 and I fish in the lily pads, I'll be using a frog. I mean, kind of makes sense, but it also does a really good job staying weedless versus a crankbait. Hey, I got him in fight phase. That only took like 8 minutes real time. Oh yeah, Bassmaster Classic. I have the tournament series or tournament edition, whatever it's called, and I've kind of dabbled in trying to route it. I know Joe D'Amelio has actually done some runs of that. Alright, so now I'm just going to the opposite side of this dock. You'd think that bass would just kind of hang out underneath the dock, but no, they go on both sides. It's actually completely different on this side. There are extra islands here. The dock looks different. That one's tiny. I don't know if you could see it. It was underneath the dock, little shadow just to the right of my lure. Actually, fishing in the islands kind of stinks because the fish can get caught on them. And I actually don't fish around islands on Lake 4 because it's just too much of a hassle. That looks like a Lake 1 bass. Yep. Isn't that's even more of a tease. You actually find the species of fish that you're looking for, and it turns out, no, it's a small one. That's way more of a tease than a fish being reeled into 2 feet and then choosing to turn around. That looks like a bass that I want to catch. Might be a trout. Well, why not go fishing in your underwear too? For realsies. I'm just joking about that, of course. But I mean, in the wintertime when you go ice fishing, when you go ice fishing and you're out in a nice warm fish house, you can pull that thing off. That thing meaning fishing in your underwear, not your actual underwear. That would kind of be weird. So I'm gonna get off that train of thought now. the This game, I mean, it doesn't look like much, but it's actually quite challenging until you really figure out the mechanics of it. And the speedrun, I mean, the speedrun community is a whopping 2 people. I've tried and tried to get people to play this game to no avail for some odd reason. Right, I want to try to guide this thing through islands. Get off of there. My tension is kind of creeping up a bit high. I want to get him the heck away from this, and this is why fishing in the island area stinks. Now that he's out at 64 feet, I have to try to guide him in as I reel him when he gets in run phase. Or I mean rest phase, sorry. But he doesn't want to do that. So when he's in fight phase, I'm trying to guide him around these rocks. Don't want him to get stuck. So come on. There we go. This could get irritating. Alright, come on in. Come on into about 30 feet. Don't get out past those islands. Alright, no. No, so now he's doing an underwater shake, and he shook the hook. So there was about 4 minutes completely wasted, which is more than annoying. I mean, come on. And all you can do in that situation is try to reel in and build up tension to about halfway and hope that he hangs on. There's a catfish. Get out of there. So hopefully you can see all these RNG elements are just lovely. Alright. On to my next spot. Super Black Bass multiplayer tournament, yeah. Oh yeah, I was kind of going on about the community until I started complaining about that fish. Anywho, our whopping community size of 2 players, me and Brysolf. I've actually done speed runs on this game probably, I don't know, 40 to 50 times, something like that. Actually, my counter is at 48, so 48. But he's actually finished 1 speed run of it. That's it. I think I've finished maybe 10. I don't know. My record is an hour 38 and 56 seconds. There have been 3 or 4 times that I've been ahead of that pace going into the final lake, and I've finished like 10 to 15 minutes worse each and every time that's happened. I've actually had 1 run where I had 1 fish to go, and I was at like an hour and 25 minutes or something like that. I wound up finishing 5 minutes slower than my time. Oh, that's frustrating. And there's like no real tech to the game where it's just, cast your lure and pray. It's kind of irritating. So I've actually gotten a handful of people to try this game just to amuse me. My buddies Cantaloupe Me and EA Ray Lewis, and also Joe Bernier and Karel van Duivenboden, and Karel was actually just played Super Mario Kart yesterday. Yeah, yesterday for SNES Super Stars. SMK_machine. So give him a round of applause. And then I think that's about it. So in this spot that I've chosen, I'm only going to be casting mid-left, mid-right, and far right because I know that there's no fish to the far left. Another Lake 1 bass. That's 4 of them that I've seen, I think. What are some of my other favorite games? Just for the Super Nintendo or for any platform? I mean, I guess I've got time, so I might as well answer for any platform. Games that I've actually speedrun, Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. I'm probably best known for Zelda 2. Also Mega Man 4. I think that's about it for the Nintendo. I've done a couple of Mario 2 runs, but I'm just a complete plebe at it. I don't know any of the tricks. I know of them, but I don't know how to do them. For Super Nintendo, speedruns is this and Super Mario Kart. That's another Lake 1 bass. How annoying. I've been in part of the Super Mario Kart community for, gosh, since 2006, I think, is when I joined the time trial site, either 6 or 7. I joined at something like 85th in the world out of 150 people that were on NTSC at the time. That might be a bass. I'm going to have to recast at him. That might be a trout too. And then I worked my way up the rankings over the next 2 years to my peak at 20th. And by then there were probably about 250 to 280 people amongst the NTSC ranks. But since then I've just stopped playing. Honestly, it got too hard. Very, very tedious grinding those time trials. Get away. I don't think I got that one to mud. And ever since then I've fallen. I think I'm like 44th or 45th on the rankings now. But I did hold the record at one time for 150cc all cups for one player. Now that category doesn't exist anymore. Everything's got combined because 2 players actually faster. I cannot get this thing to come up, so I'm gonna try something different. Try dropping the lure down to him and then just getting it to sit right in front of his face. I mean, and that was a decision that I actually agreed with. There we go. Now the problem is I gotta lure him up to the surface and see what he actually is. And he's a trout. I wasted all that time for a trout. Typical. Switched back to my trusty crankbait. I'm running my boat into these logs. Doesn't damage it whatsoever. Alright, still in the right spot. Another crappy thing about this lake, just more reasons to complain about its awfulness. Every fish, pretty much, that you see is out at, like, you have to cast out like 65 feet to even get a chance for him to come up. There's there's hardly any that are in it. Like in the next lake, there are a bunch that are about 20 feet away from your boat, so you can try the insta catch technique. I don't know if that's what I'm gonna call it. Sure, you try to lure a fish in to 1 foot so that it bites right then, and then you reel it in and you catch it in 1 second. Actually, I mentioned my practice run yesterday. I on Lake 3, I had caught my 5 fish within about, I mean, I only made like 15 casts, I think. It probably took me maybe 10 minutes. 4 of the 5 fish that I reeled in under a minute. And all these fish, I mean, this fish is going to weigh something like 13 pounds. All the fish on Lake 3 are like 16 to 18 pounds. So they fight hard, and they take a while to get tired. So that's pretty exceptional luck to get them to just come into the boat like that. And actually, the last 2 that I caught they bit at 1 foot and then just swam into the boat, and I caught them right away. Can I eat the trout? Uh, yes, trout is quite delicious. Ah, he's shaking. Oh, good. And that's the big danger of when they start to shake. You try to build up the tension and reel in as much as you can, and then they jump and they almost cut your line. So that was actually a pretty decent catch. Probably took me about 2 minutes real time. I'm not 100% sure. Catfish. You can eat the catfish too. Just especially in a nice, deep clear lake like this, not a muddy river bottom. I'm sure a catfish would be excellent. All right, another thing I have to go over, game mechanic wise. So the amount of time that you get to fish, you're allowed to fish between 7 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. If I ever get past noon, that's a complete failure. I mean, that's that's gonna be just forever. And the weather and the wind change every 2 hours. There we go. So that's something to pay attention to. We like to we like to see cloudy or sunny conditions on Lake 2, and misty or foggy conditions on Lakes 1, 3, and 4. I think everything's been cloudy so far. Yeah, good. I was aggressive and got him in while he was on fight phase, and the tension built up pretty rapidly. Oh no, bass are terrible in the fry pan. At least largemouth bass are. I mean, there's so many different species of that are called bass. Largemouth bass have, I mean, I guess if you get like a 1 to 1.5 pounder, they'll be all right. But the bigger ones have kind of this tough texture, and they got this oily and like overly fishy foulness to them. It's largemouth just isn't good. They're famous because they're a good sport fish. They eat just about anything. They're not all that difficult to catch. You can catch them on a variety of lures. They're all over the country. I mean, almost every lake and river system has them. And I mean, I think this is like the 6th or 7th Lake 1 bass that I've seen, which is highly annoying. And they fight pretty good. You know, you get one of the bigger ones, they pull pretty hard and they always jump at least once or twice. So that's why they're popular to catch. I mean, you got you got tournament fishermen that make their lives off of catching these things. I mean, the Bassmaster Classic is like a $500,000 purse for that tournament or something like that, and it's shown on ESPN for crying out loud. And then if you win the Bassmaster Elite Series, I think you get $1 million. I don't know, it's something like that. But yeah, for eating, nah. You go get something else. Bluegills are great. Crappies are pretty good. Walleyes are absolutely amazing, as are like perch and sauger. Northern pike are highly underrated because they have tons of bones that you got to take out. But it's actually a fairly easy technique to learn to take out the bones. But northern pike have a very delicious flavor, whether you bread them and deep fry them. He's not going to come in. Bread them and deep fry them, or cook them in a pan. Just season them up with some salt and lemon pepper, and pan fry them in some butter and olive oil. Pair that with oven roasted or baked, or I don't know what the term would be, broccoli or asparagus is what my wife likes. And broccoli is, I mean, it's never good raw. Actually, I kind of enjoy broccoli dipped in like ranch or something like that. But anyway, best way to cook broccoli is to pour some olive oil and salt and pepper on it and plenty of garlic. You measure garlic with your heart, as my wife says. You don't actually measure when you put that on stuff. And then cook it in at 425 for about 24 minutes and until it's kind of crispy and the very fringes are kind of burned and it's barely even recognized as broccoli anymore. And then you add some Parmesan cheese over the top of it, and the heat will kind of melt it a little bit. Who would have thunk that we would have a cooking stream on SpeedGaming today? Come on in. Oh, 2 feet. No. I mean, if you measure garlic with your heart, I guess, yeah, that's Italian. I mean, who doesn't like garlic? Vampires. That's about all I can think of. Just don't talk about garlic in a Castlevania stream. I don't know. I'm like primarily German descent, and I don't know what's the major German foods? Bratwurst and sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is disgusting. Brats are excellent. I'm not sure what descent my wife is 100%. Most likely some sort of Scandinavian, being that we're both from Minnesota. Well, come on. Just because you're allergic to something doesn't mean you necessarily hate it. It just means that your body reacts to it in the wrong way. You might absolutely love the taste, but be allergic to it. I mean, my wife is lactose intolerant. Does that stop her from eating buttery mashed potatoes with creamy gravy and sometimes cheesy things? No. She just did it 2 days ago when I told her, hey, it's gonna make your stomach upset. Oh well, it's worth it. Hey, Mick Bear from Minnesota. I'm from Waconia. Where do you hail from? Just don't say Minneapolis or St. Paul. Haha, just kidding. Well, I hate dying. Oh. but but the point still stands. You might like the flavor. Yeah, dying would be a bad thing. Yeah, and she's tried those like lactase tablets before, and then like tried to have. I mean, granted, she did try the first time she tried it. She had a couple of pieces of pizza. I mean, talk about diving into this experiment with lactase tablets head first. Give me all the melted cheese. But I mean, even dunking chicken wings, or like just barely dipping an edge of some chicken wings in ranch at B Dubs or something like that makes her stomach just hate her. I mean, so it's pretty rough. It used to be when she asked me to make her something, it was always something cheesy. And then I would be like, well, then you're going to get a grilled cheese, and that's it. No complaining. And now she can't even ask me for that, even. So instead, now she just says, I don't know, and then I'm supposed to predict what she is craving, and then go to the refrigerator and be like, all right, no, what do I have to make? Actually, it's nothing. Nothing is what I make. Oh yeah, this is typical of a fight on this lake with one of these big ones. Lake 3 and 4 will be even worse. Yay, got it. Oh, a Fergus Falls from Jeff Kugler. I have a cabin in Osakis. So, about halfway between where you and I are is where that is. And that's where I just went out ice fishing. Not this past weekend because I worked, but the weekend before that. I was out on the ice, caught 6 pike over Friday afternoon and Saturday morning. Got my first one I caught within like 20 minutes. Tip up goes up, and I caught a sorry, I'm looking for my fish and I can't talk at the same time. That looks like a cat. Yep, catfish. So first one I got was a 27-incher, then a 25. Then I didn't have any bites for about an hour, so I moved my tip ups and another catfish. And then I got, like within 10 minutes of moving the tip ups, I got a 31-incher and then a 29 that I had to let go. Then the next morning I set up in the same spot that I caught those 2 nicer ones. Well, on that lake, I was in a pretty sheltered bay. There was 3.5 inches of ice on that lake. So that was like 10 days ago. But as I continued my story, it gets more interesting. This is how nuts I am about fishing. So Saturday morning, start off in the same spot. Don't catch anything for like an hour. Move my tip ups. Don't catch anything for about a half hour. Move them again. I don't catch any, and I finally got a bite like, I don't know, 20 minutes after I moved them for the third time. I don't think the spot has a fish. I don't quite recall. It typically, if I get up to this spot on the north end of this lake, it's reset time. Yeah, I have to cast to the right. The right two spots are where my fish are at. So, anywho, moved the tip ups. Got a 28 incher and a 24 incher. Cat. Didn't catch anything for a while. Moved to a completely new spot instead of just moving tip ups around the spot that I was kind of at. And by that time, it had warmed up to about 40 degrees. And I'm walking on 3.5 inches of ice. They recommend 4 inches of ice to be safe. That looks like a good one. And I got my tip up set up. I was gonna drill a few holes to see if I could find some sunfish or crappies, just jigging them up. Once I got done drilling the holes and got my rod set up, my waxworm on and everything, and I was gonna go start fishing panfish. As I walked out to my first spot, I could hear the ice crack underneath me with every step that I took. So it was time to go in. I mean, I was splashing around on like a 1/4 inch of water that was sitting on top of the ice too. So that Saturday morning was a little bit scary walking in after that. But yeah, so this past week is like, no, don't go on the ice. Don't do it. In my area, lakes aren't even froze over. The smaller, shallower ones are. More of the bigger ones are not. I'm about 20 miles west of Minneapolis. Maybe 25, I don't know. So in the kind of south central part of the state. So there's like no ice here. And this past 2 weeks have all been like 35 to 40 degree highs. And now it's finally turned. We're actually gonna get some winter. We're supposed to get like 4 to 8 inches of snow between this afternoon and tomorrow morning. But that estimate keeps on going up, so I don't know where we're gonna wind up. Luckily, I live 1.7 miles away from where I work, so it's not that big of a deal for me to drive. My wife, though, drives to Bloomington. It's about, I don't know, 15 to 20 miles or so. Maybe a little more. She always gets stuck in traffic on 494 and turns into a parking lot between about 7 to 9 a.m. Gonna be much worse tomorrow. She says she's gonna work from home tomorrow. I can't blame her. 8 inches in Colorado, that's probably the stuff that's coming at us. We have a winter storm warning or a blizzard watch or something like that. I don't know what the technical terms are, and I don't care. Well, I mean, especially downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul, they have all those one-ways. I remember, like, I think it was, I don't know if Carl is here. I think it was 2015 that me and a couple of buddies flew over here. So I had two people fly over for SGDQ from the Netherlands, and then my buddy Joe and his girlfriend came in from Colorado to attend the event. And I remember there was construction near the venue, and I looked on Google to figure out, okay, this parking garage is is the closest. Easy to get into, easy to walk to the place. Actually drive there. Nope, parking garage is closed. It's it's sealed off. Can't enter. So I continue up this one way, and there's some construction, and I see an arrow at an intersection at a stoplight pointing left. So I figure, well, it's pointing for me to go left. I turn left, and hello, oncoming traffic. Oops, I turned into a one way. Pulled over to the side, and there was a cop on the shoulder, and he flashed his lights at me, and he just kind of gave me a signal. Ah, you got to turn it around. Let's go, you idiot. So I waited for traffic to go by and whipped a Yui, and then found a different garage. Oops. The best part of that GDQ, so that was over. Well, it's typically around 4th of July anyway, but that was right over the week. It was like July 2nd through 9th that year or something like that. And on the 4th, there weren't really any runs that we wanted to watch. It was like there was Mega Man 3 that I really wanted to watch. So we put that on at home, and that was at like 8 in the morning or something like that. We put that on, we started drinking right then and there. They had brought over some Belgian beer that was absolutely amazing. And for lunch, I cooked a prime rib, and we played beanbags, or cornhole if you want to call it that. I've never really been comfortable with that name. Now this is nuts. This fish was down to orange, and it got back up to light green. Ugh. Construction with no one working. Yeah, that's about right. Alright, so now I have 5. I'm gonna go in. And that little level thing that pops up after I catch a certain amount of fish, it's meaningless. Oh, now it's gonna start to rain. Fishing in the rain is the best. Fish are easy to see, and they're really easy to catch. They mud more readily, but I go way in now. And now I pray that 3rd place is like 55 pounds. Yes! I might actually get through this lake without using a password. And by the way, I am only 19 minutes and 55 seconds behind at this point. I finished Lake 1 13 seconds behind my PB. I think actually Whitbeer was one of them. There was one that my favorite one was like, it was like 9.5% or something like that. Real alcoholic, real bitter. Oh, it was beautiful. And that prime rib, he still tells me that was the best piece of meat they've ever eaten. Alright, on to Lake 3, where the infamous lily pad skip is, but I don't ever... that is now not part of the run anymore. I go straight to the lily pads. Alright, a nice gentle wind. Anytime you see that wind coming at you in the opening screen, you get kind of nervous, because if it's triple at you, you're going to have some headaches. Alright, see how nice and readily that fish mudded? It is foggy now. Fish are real easy to see. And on this lake, they're typically fairly close to the boat when you catch them. I'll be trying to do 1-foot catches every now and again. This fish is supposed to be over here on the right side of the screen. might be out farther. This is one where it kind of varies. So I'll check one more time, but there should be fish in all 4 spots in each and every one of these. Oh, yep, there it is. Very top of the screen, about 70 feet out. That was a northern pike. So same RNG in finding fish as Lake 2, 1 in 5 chance. I can find, they have now added northern pike to the list, but removed catfish. So I can find big bass, I can find Lake 2 size bass, trout, bluegill, and northern pike. That's a bluegill. Now when I go from the far right side of the screen to the far left, I bring up that little target screen or whatever. It's actually a half second faster to do that than to scroll all the way over. Look at that tech. Alright, so yeah, lily pad skip. There's another area on this lake. Looks kind of small. That's a northern. There's another area on this lake, kind of similar to the lily pads, where you have a bunch of spots all clustered next to each other, and they all have like adequate spots where you can find mutter fish. Like 3 or 4 per screen, typically. I don't know if I've ever actually landed on top of a lily pad and had to recast. Like, what is this? This has never happened in my real life fishing experience. So anyway, lily pad skip comes from that spot. Anytime I was able to catch all 5 of my fish, that's a trout, in that one area and not have to come to the lily pads. It was always a nice quick Lake 3 in, so I dubbed it lily pad skip. So, actual tech on the game? No. No tech. It's still just cast and pray. No glitches, no nothing at all. God, I used up all my luck yesterday. I knew this was going to happen too. I mean, yesterday, had I had that luck right now, I would have had a gold Lake 3. I mean, I finished it up within like 15 minutes. It was insane. And then Lake 4 was okay. I mean, it was alright. But I wound up with over 100 pounds on Lake 4, which is what you kind of have to be at to win that lake. Usually you can get there. On this lake, the tournament is divided into 3 different rounds. And it's a best of sort of thing. You don't have to fish all 3 rounds. All you got to do is catch about 85 pounds worth of bass throughout the tournament on day 1. And round 1 has far better and much more plentiful spots to find mutter fish. So you always just fish day 1. There he is. That looks small. And it is. It's tiny. Where are my bass? Yes, you can actually get your line tangled in the lily pads. Sometimes if you land on top of one, it'll say, you lost your lure. Cast again. And then, well, since I'm fishing top water, it's not going to get tangled around the lily pads. There, finally I found my whale. Look at that monster. Now that is a bass. With these little other 2 next to it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to 1-foot it. I tried to heave it once and then swam away, but so I'll just try to catch them. It does happen sometimes, although it's fairly rare, that if you're reeling in oh my god, that thing just bit it immediately. That little guy. But it happens sometimes where you'll just be fighting against the fish. Tension won't go up. And you won't hit the A and B combo. The line will just randomly break because you've been tangled. It tangled you in the lily pads, and you're trying to horse it in. I think it's kind of crap. Oh my gosh, I was so close to pulling off. And now this is going to take a half hour. It won't take a half hour, hopefully. Hopefully he comes in like a nice fish, but knowing this game, knowing this run so far, I mean, I had 3 or 4 of my fish on Lake 2. It took me like 15 minutes to reel in. This could take 15 to 20 minutes. So, yeah, alright, that was quick. I'm happy with that. Anyway, yeah, so when you're fighting the fish, your line, I mean, it shouldn't get tangled because that would just be not fair. I mean, come on, the game's already unfair enough, especially as a speedrun. But every once in a while, your line will just snap randomly, and you'll lose it. Honestly, it happens more if you're using the crankbait, a bait that's really prone to getting caught in weeds. So that's also part of the reason why I've switched to the frog. That looks like a northern. I'm going to confirm it. These little Lake 1 bass. I think that was a trout, actually. Oh, 0 degrees Fahrenheit isn't cold. That's, if there's no wind and 0 degrees, that's fish without a fish house weather. You don't even need to bring a portable. Minus 30, yes. 30 is like balls. Even though you're wearing all your gear, I want to get rid of that little guy. I'm gonna try to 1-foot this thing. With that little guy in the way, it might cause a little problem, but try to... Oh my gosh, now there's 3 of them. Just stay away from me, guys. Ah, he's not gonna bite. Alright. Yeah, that is 5-gallon bucket weather for sure. Minus 30 though, that's where you contemplate even getting out of bed. This thing will not leave me alone. Ow! So what happened there, and this is something that you have to contend with if you try this, if the fish pushes the lure past 1 foot, so onto 0 feet before it actually officially bites, it won't count as getting the hook set on them. So what you want to do is have the fish pick up the lure at like 2 feet, swim with it like that, and then swim into the boat. So, boom. Oh, that's not an odd concept at all. There are plenty of fishing games for all platforms. Not odd whatsoever. Am I still in there? Good. So, most likely, I'll have to go to that other spot, switch to my crankbait, and... Please. Let's just cast short of him. This fish should be at like 28 feet or something like that out from the boat. There he is, another whale. Let's try to quick catch him again. Yeah, 2 in a row. Where Dad's the demo for this. I don't know. I mean, there's like four of them, four super black basses for the Super Nintendo. One of my beloved games was called Reel Fishing, Reel, because they couldn't resist the pun for the PlayStation. That one had some interesting mechanics to it too. You kind of had to figure out actually how these fish were supposed to bite and hang on to it before you set the hook, and how much tension you had to have on the line before they would pick up the bait. And you would fish for trout in one area and salmon in another, and then carp in another, and then bluegill and bass in another, and bitterling. I remember bitterling for some reason. But then the cheat to that game was just if there was a tough fish to figure out, like I think it was the Chinook salmon or something like that, you had to have the line a certain tension before it would actually pick up the bait. And then you had to wait for it to grab on, and then its mouth would do another animation before you could actually set the hook. So it was just kind of weird to figure out. So to cheat the game, you just use top water, and then as soon as you're indicated on that a bite is happening on the top water, you set the hook, and you don't even have to worry about the mechanics of in the water fishing. So yeah, this one was out at like 65 feet from the boat. You can't do the 1 foot trick to a fish that far out. They actually won't follow your bait for more than about 25 feet. So they have to be within about 30 to 35 feet from the boat to even attempt doing the trick. I'm pretty hyped that I got it twice. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, that was another quick catch. Twilight Princess fishing. Um, it's okay out on that little pond. Everything else is just dumb. Alright, was that my fourth or fifth? I think that was my fourth. Yep. Need one more. I mean, the mechanics of like reeling it in and actually, spinning I'm talking Wii version, of course, here. So actually reeling it in with the one side of the Wiimote, that was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. I'll give it props for that. But I am not in the right spot. This should be about 10 feet and rocky, or weedy. So I need to inch my boat forward ever so slightly. Uno Max. Uno Max instead of Mas. That is a total autocorrect right there. Alright, little bit of weeds here. See if we can find our boy. He's on the left side underneath all the weeds. I might have to go use a spinnerbait, but he's coming up top left corner. That didn't look like a bass. That's a trout. Shucks. And now I think this spot he's pretty close. Oh no, so he's far away, and that's a rocky area, which I kind of want to avoid. I'll come back to that mid-left spot if I don't find one here and catch it, because there will be a mudderfish out pretty far. That's not a bass. Get out of here, that little guy. So I just did that to orient myself back on the middle area. That looks like a trout again. Useless. So this is the area that I was always go to if I was going to attempt lily pad skip. there's a bunch of like weedy and rocky areas in this spot that are all. That was a little guy. That are all really close to the weigh-in dock and all really close together. And each spot that you pick has 3 different areas to cast in that actually hold fish. Swim my crankbait over that rock. Nothing over there. Nope, there he is. There's my whale. Now this could get kind of hairy. Like I said, if they dive down and get caught on these rocks, I might as well just break the line. Darn. I don't know if I cast far enough on that one. Oh well, I'll try it. No lily pad skip, Carl. I already went to the lily pads. So I'm gonna try to 1-foot this one, even though he's kind of far out. There he comes. That was close. That was close. Actually, I mentioned that there were multiple sequels of this game. Actually, my brother-in-law just gave me like a whole crate of games. NES, Super Nintendo, and N64. I can't set the hook there. He was facing away from me. Yeah. He would have swam away. I would not have got him on the 1-foot trick. So one of the games that was in the crate was Basson's Black Bass with Hank Parker, which was the sequel to this one. Haven't played it yet. Honestly, I hardly ever play video games anymore. Speaking of which, I didn't really answer that one question fully. What games that I enjoy? Oh man, I didn't get them. Other games that I enjoy for the Super Nintendo, Tecmo Super Bowl, of course. I also have NFL Quarterback Club 96, which I kind of thought about submitting to this marathon, but I don't know what would I do for it? Like a Pro Bowl game or something like that? I don't know. Get away from there. This might be stuck and I'm going to break the line. And this is why I wanted to 1-foot this thing. Oh, he came out of it. I don't think I can catch him there. Anytime this fish dives, and it's just going to make me nervous. I want to keep him at the surface. Let's see what else. Star Fox. I can't believe that no one's playing Star Fox in this marathon. I'm thinking of adding it on as a bonus, but I haven't played it in like 3 years. I don't know if I could make it through course 3. I would submit it as like a either just a one and done with the course 1 black hole route, or do all 3 courses back to back to back and not do any skips or anything like that. Um, and then and then a game that I may or may not be playing next Monday. Which, I mean, if you think this game is boring and a drag, just you wait. I'm gonna play PTO, Pacific Theater of Operations. It's a World War II strategy game. The the fastest I've completed that is 7 hours and 10 minutes. I actually won the war on that run with the Allies on March 21st of 1942. So, yeah, Battle of Midway never happened. So, we'll we'll see if I have the opportunity to play that and show that one off, and it'll be it'll be a lot of talking and a lot of boredom. I don't know if Fiesel will allow me to play music so that the stream gets muted on highlight or whatever. But other games that I play, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 is probably my only other speedrun that I've actually spent time on. It's a game for PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And then I also play NCAA Football 2004. Fable: The Lost Chapters is another Xbox game that I really like. Doubt I'll ever speedrun it though, because PC is the ticket when it comes to that game. Nice! 5 fish, alright. Oh yeah, it's how do you say that? Koei? Koei? Alright, I'm just confirming that I have 5, okay. Yes. Well, I haven't played as much NCAA as I liked. Over the last 2 weeks or so, I've played through a season in my Dynasty mode. If I in that game, if I don't score 100 points, I've failed. I've failed at that game. If I allow a score, I've also failed. And I play on All American too. I don't play it on Heisman. The Heisman is just crap. The players, you play against a team that has all 70 speed players on defense, and they look like they're 95 speed. They're just so fast, and your guys fumble at for no reason at random moments. It's garbage. All right, so this is top of the line for round 1. Typically, the top 3 are about 89 to 92 pounds, but I only have to finish in the top 10. So, weigh in without fishing. um, on NCAA Football 2004, I've actually played. I'm almost through my second dynasty. The dynasty mode forces your coach to quit after 60 seasons, and I'm on. I think I just started year 59 of my second dynasty. So that's how many games I've played of that since I think I bought it in '05 when it was used and on sale for 14 bucks or something like that. All right. So last game mechanic that I haven't talked about. The reason why I switch over to that arrow and get rid of the clock before I weigh in is because if you don't do that, you have to wait to show the time runs for throughout the day just real quickly. So it saves about 20 or 30 seconds or so. All right, Lake 4. calm wind, kind of like that, because most of the fish that you catch are out about 55 feet away from the boat. Yes, they are insanely huge for bass. I wish I could catch regular 15, 16, 18 pounders. On this lake, the biggest I've caught I think is 24 pounds, 4 ounces. This lake routinely gives you 20 pounders. So this lake, now we have a 1 in 6 chance of finding a fish we want to catch. Mutter fish on this lake include Lake 2 bass and Lake 4 bass, and also all 4 of the other species of fish that we've encountered. So bluegill, there's my whale. I don't like fishing in this spot because of these logs. Almost had him. So bluegill, trout, northern pike, and catfish are all available to catch here. So 1 in 6 chance, and these fish, man, fighting a 20 pounder, much tougher to... the game is lagging. There are too many sprites on the screen. I got too little fish to contend with. It's cloudy. I can't really see them too well. Got him! Oh, that's huge. That's awesome. Actually, Cantaloupe did play this game. We did a... So the story behind that is, he was going to play Svenna in the Zelda 2 tournament, but Svenna had like either TV issues or internet issues, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, so he couldn't play that day. They rescheduled for the next day. And it was like there were like 60 to 80 people waiting to watch this race on whatever channel it was on. So I said, hey, I'll play again. He wanted revenge on me anyway because I had gotten kind of lucky and beat him. He was like 40 seconds ahead of me, but lost about a minute in the Valley of Death at the end of the game, like the very final run to the last palace. He lost all this time. So I said, sure, I'll play you just for exhibition game, for the fans, for the millions. I wound up beating him by 2 seconds. So I think if I would have lost, I would have had to play Princess Tomato. And since he lost, he had to play Super Black Bass, and he wound up, I think he caught one big bass on Lake 1, and that was it. He had one on that would have been a lake record. Like, he had actually a Lake 2 bass on, but it wound up breaking his line. Because again, the game isn't all that easy if you haven't ever tried it before. Alright. Get away from me, little bass. Alright, here we go. Gonna be a fun fight. So yeah, he wound up playing it, and I was like chatting with him over Discord while he played it, and while I watched the stream with and back then the best delay that you could get was like 10 or 15 seconds or whatever. No real low latency streams like nowadays, where it's like you're basically straight up talking with the guy. Wow, another real quick catch. If I could get 3 more of those, man, we could gold this and world record this baby. Doubt it. I was only 22 minutes and 19 seconds behind pace from at the end of the Lake 3 split. Again, I've been 15 minutes ahead of pace going into Lake 4 and wound up finishing 10 minutes behind. But anyway, it takes so long for them to grow that big. Well, they're gonna get. They live. At the end of tournaments, they let all the bass go. I mean, fishermen actually get penalized if they bring dead fish the way in. So it's like incentivized. Keep your fish alive. I remember watching Mike Iaconelli the one time. Make sure you hit no. Don't weigh in right there. I watched when I was watching the Bassmaster Classic. This was probably about 8 years ago when I actually watched that sort of thing. And admittedly, I'll still tune into it from time to time. But I remember Ike's, a bunch of his fish started going belly up in his live well because his aerator broke in there. And so he had like this powder that he kind of sprinkled over the fish that's supposed to revitalize them or something like that. And they didn't come to, and he wound up breaking his one of his rods over his knee like a baseball bat, like Bo Jackson style. Dude had a temper on him. We'll just say that. Oh God, yeah. The netting netting fish. Woof. That sort of thing has been part of like controversy in Minnesota for the last decade or two because a band of Native Americans net walleyes out of Lake Mille Lacs, and I mean, part of their treaty says that they can, and I'm, honestly, I'm fine with it, but they're using like boats with actual outboards on them, and they're using commercial nets, and they're taking these walleyes off their spawning beds. So and then they're allowed a certain quota of weight of total fish, which includes northern pike. So any pike or smallmouth bass or anything like that that they catch, they just throw away. I mean, locals always are telling stories about just finding piles of whole northern pike in a ditch somewhere. Now, there's also a ban on Leech Lake, another very popular Minnesota walleye lake. They go, and also on Lake Winnebagochish, I think. They go out there in canoes and in hand-woven nets, and they net walleyes. All the fishermen out there, perfectly fine with it. They've kind of developed their own niche where that lake has done, or those lakes have done just fine with the netting and with the sport fishermen, that go up there, and all the resorts that are around those lakes and stuff like that. But Lake Mille Lacs, man, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources has put pretty stringent limits on walleye fishing there. Like, you're only allowed to catch I don't know what the current limits are, but I remember back in like 2010, you were allowed one walleye between 14 and 16 inches. That was the slot limit. And since no fishermen were keeping any walleyes, everything they caught was like 17 to 20 inches or so. And I mean, you really want to keep the 20 to 24 inches in the water because those are typically the breeding females. But with that limit, with no fish coming out of the lake, two things happened. It became like absolute best in the world walleye fishing. I mean, there was no better spot on the planet to go to catch a whole ton of walleyes because there were so many of them in there. Their forage base was real low, so anytime a night crawler or a fathead minnow came crawling along, oh, they gobbled it right up. But once it got to the real warm months, July and August, and even early September, and they moved to the deeper mud flats, fishermen were pulling these fish out of like 20 to 25 feet of water, and the fight would strain the walleyes so much and being brought out of that deep water that after they were let go, they would then die. So then the next year the fishing was just awful. Resort owners complained about it. The tribe complained about it because there just weren't as many walleyes there, and so they kind of, I think the limit is still the same for summertime fishing. You only get one. You might get two nowadays, but they loosened the slot limit. And actually, over the last couple years, they've actually closed down walleye fishing on the lake, just so that they can recover. I mean, basically, you get June to fish, and then July and August, you can't even fish for them. But the good part about that lake is it's one of the best smallmouth bass fisheries in the United States. Actually, the Bassmasters Elite Series fishermen, like they took a poll and they said that Lake Mille Lacs was the best bass fishery in the country. Even though we're in Minnesota and we don't have a very long growing season, not like Florida or Texas or California, you know, where bass can actually get up to 15 to 20 pounds. I mean, you catch a largemouth up here that's a 6-pounder and you've just caught yourself a trophy. I mean, our state record is only 8 pounds and 15 ounces. But yeah, it's a very good smallmouth fishery, very good muskie fishery. So there's plenty of opportunities to go catch fish up there, and I would think that the resort owners that are, you know, making their living off the lake would kind of try to push for that a little bit more. Like, you know, you don't have to fish for walleyes. Come out and fish for these other ones that are really fun to catch. And you can catch like 45, 50-inch muskies up there. I mean, that's a fish of a lifetime. Oh, this one will take a while to reel in. All right, so that's my ranting about about Lake Mille Lacs and walleyes. Does Minnesota have spear fishing? Yeah. In the wintertime, there are spear houses all over little lakes going for northern pike. Also, you can spear as many rough fish as you want. I used to spear carp every year. Either just take a pitchfork, or I have a little bow and arrow with a 35-pound draw that, I mean, it's just enough to punch through, but I mean, I've speared carp that were like 45 pounds. Heck, I even caught a carp that was probably 35 or 40 pounds barehanded. On my senior year of high school, so this is 2004. I just gave away my age, pretty much. So senior year of high school, last day of school, last day of finals, me and two buddies went out to this little creek that comes out of a lake, and yes, I did just say creek. Creek is a mountain stream where you can drink water out of. Creek is a really slow running stream, that shallow stream that comes out of a lake. And yeah, don't you dare put that in your mouth. But so that's my distinction. It's not just my Minnesota accent showing through. So out of this little creek, there was one spot that came up real shallow, like 6 to 8 inches of water. And there was a big carp that swam right behind it. And I shot at it and missed, went right over the top of it. Instead of reeling up my arrow, I just got in the creek and walked up behind it and pinned it against the ground, found its gills, threw it on the shore. We wound up spearing 87 carp, 6 sheephead that day. Very fun stuff. The biggest one that I've ever seen come out of there was a 67 pounder. A different buddy, not one of the guys that was there that day, but a different guy that I knew from my school speared that one. But we get common carp in there. We get buffalo carp. The most recently that I've done that, I think it was about 3 years ago. I went with my buddy. I went fishing with my buddy Mo for bass out on my home lake, which is just east of where I live. I've been fishing that lake since I was 4 years old. I kind of know where to go, where the good spots are. I mean, it's only 260 acres, and it only gets to 40 feet deep, and it's fairly easy to fish early on, like in May and June. But we went out there the one day, and we probably caught 20 or 25 bass each, and a few northerns as well too. And we got to this one spot. Crick away. We got to one spot where a crick runs out of the lake, and there were a bunch of carp splashing around in there. So I told him, man, I kind of want to spear. This opportunity only comes around once so I was on far left. All right, the opportunity only comes around like for a weekend out of the year that I'm actually able to do it. So he's like, okay, fine, let's try it. I'm up for it. And first I went to Lake Waconia, the spot that we speared all those out last day of high school. We went there first. I wound up spearing like a 30-pound buffalo carp. And we took it home. We bagged it up and put it in my freezer. And then we went out to my other lake, my home lake, which shall remain nameless. And I think I speared like 2 or 3 small common carp, and we bagged those up. He took them home. He was gonna fillet them up. And so that big fish that we speared first had an arrow hole through its side. It had sat out on the shoreline for, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes while we were trying to get other ones in that spot. And then we take it home, put it in the freezer, and it's in the freezer for about an hour and a half. He drives home from Waconia to St. Paul, about a 50-minute to an hour drive. And he texts me a picture holding that big fish and says, "It's still alive." So even after all that, it's still alive and kicking. Carp are some hardy fish, man. Live on Lake Nameless. Ooh, look at this whale. Oh yeah, baby. Let's go. So this will be my 4th fish if I can get this one in. Oh, by the way, world record passed like 4 minutes ago. So, shucks. Hopefully I still might hit my target. I think I set it... What did I set it at? Either 215 or 220. That's pretty typical. I think the first time I ever actually speed ran this game. So that story goes, I think I was in Lack Attack stream watching Zelda or something, and who was it? Like either Author Blues or Absnerdity came in there and said something and was like, yeah, and Lack goes, yeah, you speedrun all those really weird Super Nintendo games. And so I asked him if he'd ever speedrun Super Black Bass, and he's like, no, I've never even heard of it. So I decided, well, I'm gonna do it then. First time I ran the game, I think I finished in like 2 hours and 12 minutes or so. I didn't break that record for the next like 25 playthroughs, and that's when I hit the 138. And now that one is probably, I mean, if you take my sum of best, I'm probably at around an hour. Wow. This is just incredibly good luck. 3 of the 4 fish that I've caught have come in pretty easily. Now, typically on this lake, these fish, the estimates will actually weigh up about 2 pounds, but these 22-pound estimates are kind of iffy. Right? I want to fish in the same spot, but I want to make it 20 feet. So I went looped around, and it looks like I picked the same spot, but hopefully making the depth finder say 20 feet will actually make this spot 20 feet. It's still only 5. I might be in the same spot, but whatever. We'll cast here anyway, see if it changed at all. I mean, moving your boat an inch makes the entire thing change, so... No, I might be in the same spot. Oh well. My little trick didn't work. Anyway, where was I at? Oh yeah, the world record. Gonna be nearly impossible to beat. A perfect task could probably finish this game within like 12 minutes. That ain't ever gonna happen. Alright, so I'm seeing stuff about sushi in here. Probably the best sushi I ever had was tempura walleye, made by my buddy Mike, who lives down in Austin, Minnesota, also known as Spam Town. So if you've ever heard of Spam, people in Hawaii apparently love it. I don't know why. I've never honestly eaten it before, but but that's where Spam is made. He was a sushi chef out in California for like 10 years. Then he came back home to Minnesota, which made me happy because I got one of my fishing buddies back, trout. But one year, he caught a pretty big, like a 25 or 26 inch walleye, sometime in September, like early September, something like that, and he knifed it. I told him after the fact, I'm like, yeah, you should let that go. That might be a spawning female. But anyway, he had already filleted it up, and we got together around Christmas time later that year, and he made a tempura batter and cut the walleye into strips and fried it up and made some sushi out of it. By far the best I've ever had. I mean, I'm a big sushi fan. Actually, just this past, let's see, last week Wednesday or something, me and my wife went out for sushi, and I actually had red snapper for the first time. It was kind of bland. Not the, nice, fatty and flavorful stuff like that. Like tuna has. But I mean, it was pretty dang good. Great texture, and the place we go to, even though it's in Minnesota, I mean, it's a adequate place. You're never gonna get as fresh a fish as you're gonna get out in Cali or Hawaii or anything like that, but I mean, it's fantastic stuff. All right, bass number 5 right here. We'll see if I can get it in, and then You know, if I finish, if I'm going to weigh in on this lake before 9 o'clock, that's that is a spectacular day of fishing. And usually, so Lake 3, I talked about the odds of actually getting past Lakes 1 and 2. Lake 1 is like a 60% chance or so. Lake 2 is like, whoa, concentrate. I'm going to let him rest for a while, get the tension down. Lake 2 was about like 30% or so with the weigh-in RNG. Lake 3 is 100%. You catch 5 big fish, you're guaranteed to get past that lake. This lake, it's about 90% chance. You catch 5 big fish like this, you're gonna win. And the only thing about this speed round, only stipulation, you can get first, second, third, whatever on those first couple lakes, as long as you get by them. You can move on to the next round, but you gotta win the final tournament to actually have the run count. And actually, the first time I played this for SNES Super Stars was one of those 10% where I didn't have enough weight. I had like 98 pounds and 2 ounces, and the computer in first place had like 98 pounds and 6 ounces. But what's typical for first on this lake is about 94. I've seen anywhere from 89 to that 98. Honestly, I have 4 bass that are estimated over 20 pounds. I'm going to finish with over 100 pounds of fish. Get away from that rock. He's dove down a bit. Usually when he's in fight phase like this, though, I can pull him up and he'll move around. Kind of want to get his tension down a little bit before I start messing with him. Hello, Fire Waster. Another one of my SMK boys. He always likes to turn up for super black bass. Oh my god, and the fungo. Everyone is here that I know from Super Mario Kart. Alright guys, don't take over the chat. Well, of course white tuna is the best. I mean, it's... Whoa, that was kind of odd. He jumped up from 9 feet below the surface to 0 in about 0.02 seconds. Now he's going to dive again. Diving in run phase, bad. Dive in fight phase, okay, fine. But with how unhealthy and fatty it is, that's exactly why it tastes good. I mean, why not? I mean, typically, if me and my wife go out for sushi, we just get the rolls. I really like to get actual, sushi with the slice of fish on top of the ball of rice. I don't think she really ever gets that. She'll always steal a piece of mine, though. And then I'll always steal a piece of one of her rolls. Oh yes, unagi. I love unagi. My wife is afraid of it, which just means more for me. I had one that was just god awful. Back in the spring sometime, we went out for sushi with her brother. the same guy that gave me the crate of games. And we were at an all-you-can-eat place, not a buffet. It was like you order the sushi and they make whatever for you and bring it out, and then you can just keep ordering over and over and over again. And then if you ever leave any food, they can upcharge you. They upcharge you pretty bad for the cost of it. So only order what you can eat, basically. But I don't even remember what it was that I ordered. If I had a menu in front of me, I would probably recognize it. But I remember ordering it thinking, yeah, I've never tried this before. Let's all have one. Let's all try it. And as soon as I took my first taste of it, I just popped the whole thing in my mouth. Took the first taste and just went, oh. My wife didn't try it after that, of course. It was like some sort of white fish, and it just had this kind of rotten taste to it. It was just bad. Again, don't remember what it was offhand. No, the length of these fights are completely unrealistic. Typically, a bass will make one hard charging run, jump once, maybe twice, and then he'll just come right in. Alright, get up to the surface. Two reasons why I want him at the surface: so that he can jump, because the fish has to be at the surface to jump. Duh. And also, just stay away from those rocks. I don't want to spend 20 minutes fighting them and then have them get caught on the rock and then have to break the line. Yeah, you don't get to choose what pound test you're fishing with on this game. You have a Invisa pound test, because you never actually see the line. Well, he's starting to get a little tired, but he'll probably be able to rest up, get back to blue. At least I haven't had any fish go all the way down to red yet. I've reeled them in at light orange. The longest fight I've ever seen with a fish... 1 foot, come on. Longest fight I've ever seen with a fish is my brother. Let's see, I was probably 9 years old. My brother was like 13 or 14. And we were bass fishing, and he snagged a 15-pound carp just in front of the dorsal fin. And we were just fishing on a neighbor's dock on my home lake that shall remain nameless. And we actually walked back and forth between 2 or 3 different docks like 4 times or 5 times. After about 15 minutes of fighting the thing, and he only had 6-pound test line on. After about 15 minutes of fighting the thing, my dad took over. He fought it for about 15 minutes, finally got it up to the dock, and where we could net it. That's only a 15-pounder. Just imagine hooking into one of those carp that I speared. That's like 35 or 40 pounds. From my wife. Haven't we all, though? Come on, let's go. Just keep jumping. Let's get you down to orange. That's kind of a lightish, yellowish sort of thing. No, that's actually yellow. Get in! Yes! Alright, now I can weigh in. Oh, I'm just over 2 hours. I think I've finished this game in under 2 hours. Only 3, maybe 4 times. Alright, time to go weigh in. We're before 9 o'clock on the game time. Just make sure, yep, I have all 5. So this was a pretty dang good Lake 4. And actually my PB time just passed for Lake 4. So a pretty similar time to my PB on this final lake. Wow, 97 pounds. That's a lot. Alright, that weighed up 2 pounds. That one was supposed to only be 16. Oh, I got this. Easy. You start with your smallest fish and work up from there. So I should have a couple world records here. A whopper might be a new record. World record bass, baby. 2206. Alright, and another one. Even bigger. 2311. Holy Christ. That's, that's gigantic. And time coming up very soon. And time that I've confirmed I've won. Hooray. No passwords. Took first in the 4th lake. I am 1 for 3 in SNES Super Stars for this game now. Woohoo. Why is the abbreviation for pound LBS? Why do we do anything in America? Alright, well, I hope you've enjoyed my random ramblings. You guys chatted throughout the whole thing. I figured I would see you one message and kind of just go from there, and that's kind of how it worked out. But anyway, so enjoy the credits. Nice little relaxing scene and relaxing music. And I will let SpeedGaming and Co. take over from here. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a day.